Join us at the Nats Chat Hangout at Walters on Wednesday, August 6th. We'll get started at 5 p.m. prior to the game against the Athletics. Come share your early thoughts on the Mike DeBartolo era.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, how to get 30, how to get 20, 20, 20, how to get 20, 20, how to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
We evaluated every opportunity and we're open-minded and listening on any situation, any player. So that's what I view my job as, being open to any opportunity that gets brought before us. And so we considered all sorts of different scenarios, but ultimately, most of those that came together that made sense for us were on those guys that were on expiring deals.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. This is a special installment of Nats Chat, a 2025 MLB Trade Deadline special. The 2025 MLB Trade Deadline was on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and the Nats made 3 more trades, upping the team's total to 5 trades in the lead-up to this deadline. The Nats, in the lead-up to this year's deadline, made 5 trades involving 6 players, 5 of whom are on expiring contracts, one of whom is not. But that one player was not starting pitcher MacKenzie Gore. He still is a Nat. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website you can check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. And we have another Nats Chat Hangout that is coming up at the home base of this podcast, Walters, which is right near Nationals Park, Wednesday evening, August 6th. Hang out, talk about how you feel about what the Nats did and did not do in the lead up to this trade deadline. So, Mark, Thursday ended up being a busy day, perhaps not as busy as it could have been, especially when you consider that the Nats did not trade 2 veterans on expiring contracts, and first baseman Josh Bell and infielder Paul DeJong. But interim general manager Mike DeBartolo spoke to you and other reporters Thursday evening. What most struck you when it came to what DeBartolo had to say?
I don't think anything was truly a surprise of what happened over the day. I thought maybe there'd be one more deal involving the guys who were under club control beyond this year. They did trade the one Alex Call. I predicted at least one of those. And I'm not shocked that they didn't trade all of the expiring contract guys. I think they were looking to. But in the end, if there just isn't a market for somebody like Josh Bell or Paul DeJong, there isn't. And so you just hang on to them. I think as far as what DeBartolo said, it does seem like they went into this with a plan. They understood that what they were most likely to be giving up was not going to fetch big-time prospects in return, whether that meant guys who were going to be on the big league roster right away or, elite prospects that they got in, a Juan Soto trade, for example. So I think they really viewed this as an opportunity to restock their farm system and to take guys who they knew were not part of the long-term plan here and move on from them and get young players in return. You look at the list of where they rank now within the Nats prospect rankings. There aren't top 10 guys, but there are a lot of guys now in that 11 to 15, 16 category. And so given what they were offering up, I think they did all right with all that. There wasn't that one major move, unexpected move, dramatic move. It was mostly what we expected them to do. I think if you were savvy enough about this going into it, you understood that they weren't going to get a whole lot in return. But I think based on what they got, what we initially are telling from this, I think they did all right, given what they had to work with.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Nats rebuild that at the very least, needs a jolt, right? If you want to be supremely generous about this, you at least have to admit the rebuild needs a jolt. And so at least what Mike DeBartolo was able to do here was add a bunch of prospects. And if you consider prospects to be lottery tickets, to be swings, he just added a bunch more swings. And you see if one or more of these swings ends up connecting. I mean, we all get it with prospects. Like, we don't know how good these guys are. We don't know how many are going to pan out. But to your point, If you look at the MLB pipeline rankings, the Nats got some decent prospects. It's not like they got a bunch of nobodies. And we understand the team with who it was selling was never going to get elite prospects unless the team traded MacKenzie Gore. The team did not trade MacKenzie Gore. What I would love to know is, what I think we all would love to know is, well, did Mike DeBartolo want to trade MacKenzie Gore and just was not allowed to by ownership, the Lerner family? Or did DeBartolo just not want to trade Gore, either because DeBartolo did not like the offers that he got or because, philosophically, he just did not think that trading Gore is the right thing to do? Do you have any sense on what the answer to that question is? Did DeBartolo want to trade Gore? Did DeBartolo not want to trade Gore?
This is one of those things, and Mike Rizzo had to answer these kind of questions for a lot of years as well, and certainly publicly would never come out and say that ownership nixed a deal that he wanted to make, although, through reporting over the years, we found out about a few things. Mike DeBartolo, certainly in his position, is not going to come out and say anything to that extent, but reading between the lines, I'm going to say that I actually take him at face value. And what he said to us a few weeks ago, I think held true here. They were not looking to trade MacKenzie Gore, but they're perfectly willing to listen to what might be offered, as you would do with anybody that calls.
MacKenzie, we value him very highly, obviously, as a all-star starting pitcher under team control for, 2 more years. And so he's a big part of our team, a big part of the club going forward.
You listen. You tell them, well, that's not enough. If I'm going to trade this guy who's an all-star pitcher, who's got 2+ years of club control, I need more. I need this, this, and this. And teams obviously were not willing to meet that price. So I think I'd take him at his word there that this was not necessarily him wanting to make a move and not being able to, but him saying, I don't need to trade this guy. I don't want to trade this guy unless somebody just knocks my socks off with an offer that I can't turn down. And my hunch, and it sounds like all the reporting from around the baseball world when it came to this, was that the asking price was incredibly high and nobody's willing to meet that, which is fine. It's not the fault of the other teams. It's not the fault of the Nationals for setting a price that high. This is not the kind of player who normally you're looking to trade at this time of year. The fact they traded Soto 3 years ago was unusual. And you saw a few guys at this trade deadline period with multiple years of control dealt, but I don't think anybody who really fell into that MacKenzie Gore kind of category.
Yeah, I think the Gore circumstance all along was one on which reasonable people could disagree. It never was a slam dunk in either direction. And as I've said, I think so much of the Gore thing comes down to how you view the rebuild. Is the rebuild salvageable, or is the rebuild just not working at all and you need to start the darn thing over again? And how you answer that question, I think, applies to what you should do with MacKenzie Gore. And I don't think it's an easy call right now with this rebuild. I do think we need to see the rest of this season in order to really get a firm handle on, okay, is this rebuild a bigger mess than we ever realized? Or is this thing salvageable? Is this thing fixable? And how guys like Dylan Cruz and Brady House perform the rest of the way, I think is going to say a lot about how fixable this rebuild is. But the Gore thing, whether you are like big on analytics or not, or big on winning now or not, the Gore thing was always debatable. It was never, I think, a slam dunk in either direction. So in terms of the 3 trades that happened on Thursday, the Nats at exactly midnight, at least if you go by the post on X that announced this, announced having traded starting pitcher Michael Soroka. The news of this actually broke late night on Wednesday night, but Soroka to the Chicago Cubs for 2 prospects and shortstop Ronnie Cruz and outfielder Christian Franklin. A nice return for the Nats. If you go by the pipeline rankings, Cruz was the Cubs' number 13 overall prospect. Franklin was the Cubs' number 14 overall prospect. The Nats on Thursday afternoon announced having traded closer Kyle Finnegan to the Detroit Tigers for 2 starting pitching prospects and Josh Randall and RJ Sales. Randall, the Tigers' number 15 overall prospect per MLB Pipeline. Sales was not among the Tigers' top 30 prospects per MLB Pipeline. And then perhaps the most impressive trade engineered by Mike DeBartolo. The Nats on Thursday evening announced having traded outfielder Alex Cole to the Los Angeles Dodgers for 2 starting pitching prospects in Eric Swan and Sean Paul Lignan. Swan, the Dodgers' number 16 overall prospect per MLB Pipeline. Lignan, the Dodgers' number 20 overall prospect per MLB Pipeline. Alex Cole fetched 2 of the mighty Dodgers' top 20 prospects. Now, again, with the caveat of we have no idea what these guys are going to end up being, that's a pretty good return for Alex Cole.
Yeah, I would not have guessed going into this trade deadline period that the most valuable player they traded, or the player who brought the most back, would be Alex Call. I don't think anybody would have seen that. I certainly believed that Call was among the players who could be traded. And as DeBartolo explained, it boils down to they have a very crowded outfield with young prospects. Dylan Cruz is about to come back from the IL. Robert Hassel III, I believe, is going to be coming back up on Friday. You have Dalen Lyle. You obviously have James Wood. You still have Jacob Young. The opportunities for Call just weren't going to be there. And while he certainly had value to them in what he brought to the table in his limited role, this is probably as high as his value was ever going to get. He's got a bunch of years of control left. It's like 4 years of control. He's not going to get playing time here, not with the other young prospects they have. Alex Call's already 30 years old. So you could see why he would have some value, but that you would get, ultimately 2 of the top 3 prospects you acquired across the entire trade deadline came in an Alex Call trade. That's pretty remarkable to me. I'll be fascinated to see how the Dodgers use him. They clearly see him as somebody who can help them. They're a team that, mixes and matches their lineups a lot, but they got star power on that team. And all of a sudden, Alex Call is a member of the Dodgers. That's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. And here's a guy who Mike Rizzo acquired off waivers 3 years ago, midseason. And ultimately, Mike DeBartolo turns him into their now, if you want to believe the rankings, number 10 and number 12 prospects in the organization. That's a win in the bigger picture, in the long run. I'm not saying that that's necessarily, the goal ultimately is just to pick up guys off waivers and try to flip them eventually for prospects. But that's a win when you consider they gave up nothing for him, a waiver pickup in August of 22, and you trade him at the July deadline in 25 for 2, halfway decent prospects.
Yeah, claimed them off waivers from the Cleveland Guardians. And, Call for the Nats actually was pretty productive. 904 Major League plate appearances over the 2022 through 2025 regular seasons. OPS plus of 103. He was above average in terms of his batting for the Nats over his time with the team. The other thing, too, is this. Not all top 20 prospects are equal, right? And we do have to keep that in mind. Like if you say, well, you got the Cubs number 13 overall prospect and they got the Tigers number 15 overall prospect, well, maybe the Tigers guy is better because the Tigers farm system is better. That said, we know how the Dodgers do business. They know drafting and player development. And so to me, if you're going to pluck from a farm system, you want to pluck from the farm system of a team like the Dodgers. So you get 2 top 20 prospects from them. I think that says, hey, all right, there's reason to be optimistic that at least one of these guys will pan out.
Yes, the only water I'd throw onto that assertion is the last time the Nats made a trade deadline deal with the Dodgers, they dealt away 2 big names in Max Scherzer and Trey Turner and got 4 prospects in return. And we've seen that return has not been as good as they would have hoped. When you're talking about 2 of them are no longer in the organization. One of them's recovering from Tommy John surgery, and the other one is a very disappointing, to this point, catcher in Keibert Ruiz. Now, it may all work out in the end, but there was, in hindsight, there was some speculation out there that the Dodgers did not view those guys as highly as the Nationals did, and, that ultimately Mike Rizzo could have gotten a lot more for Max Scherzer and Trey Turner than he did.
But see, I don't see that as an indictment of the Dodgers farm system. I see that as an indictment of the Nats. They did a bad job evaluating who they should acquire. If in fact you believe that trade was a bad trade, the Dodgers have proven like they know how to draft and player develop. Like they're one of the teams I think the Lerner family should be studying right now to try to get this operation in better shape. So we'll see. Again, we have no idea who's going to pan out. I keep saying that, but I think it's important to understand these guys are just, throws at a dartboard and you hope that a few stick. Hey, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. Summer is starting to wind down in the DMV. Your air conditioning is working overtime, just trying to keep your house and you cool and comfortable. What can you do to make a difference? Well, you can replace your old or builder-grade windows with windows from Window Nation. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the following deal that you're about to hear about here on the Nats Chat podcast. This month only, You can schedule a consult and get 50% off all window styles. Plus, you could even get your windows with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for 2 years. 866-90Nation or windownation.com. Tell Window Nation that Al Galdi from the Nats Chat podcast sent you. Window Nation windows are outstanding. They are custom made from high quality materials with precision fit. Bottom line, your home stays comfortable year round. Window Nation windows are even available in over 1,500 styles and colors. So you'll get the windows that you want to protect and beautify your home. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and over 3 million windows installed, you can trust Window Nation for quality and service. Hurry! This 50% off all windows sale ends August 31st. So don't miss out. Call 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com. Schedule your estimate and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi from the Nats Chat podcast sent you.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Finnegan ready for the 3-2 pitch to Marte. It's on the way. Swinging a pop-up right side. Nathaniel Lowe has a play. In foul territory, he waits. Lowe makes the catch, and the Nationals win the ball game. They survive the Reds' comeback bid. The Nats win Game 1 of the series 10-8. Nationals had a big first and a big third. They weathered the Cincinnati comeback and take this one to the finish line.
Kyle Finnegan at last gets dealt. Did not happen last year, ends up happening this year. Finnegan on an expiring contract, his age 33 season, older than I think a lot of people realize. He was with the Nats at the major league level over 6 seasons, 2020 through 2025. Extremely durable, not dominant, not a bad reliever, just not like great. The numbers certainly would back that up. But the fact about Finnegan that really stands out, and I believe you noted this on X, never spent a single day on an injured list. That is remarkable. And that is a testament to him and his durability and his preparation and how he takes care of himself. Never spending a single day on an IL. That is remarkable.
He missed a couple of days earlier this year with a shoulder thing, and that's the closest he ever came to being hurt. It is absolutely remarkable at a position, and we've talked about this plenty of times over the years, a position that is so volatile, both in terms of health and in terms of performance. How many relievers are truly that you know what you're going to get year in and year out? And was he the best closer in baseball? No, far from it. But he was reliable. You knew what you were going to get. He was going to have periods of dominance. He was also going to have his periods where he would fall into a slump and could blow some games for you, of course. He really was another organizational win. This is somebody who was signed way back after the World Series, the winter leading up to 2020, signed to a major league contract, even though he'd never been in the big leagues before. He spent 6 years in the A's system, never got called up, and so he was able to move on as a minor league free agent, and they gave him a major league contract, and he never spent a day in the minor leagues with the Nationals. He made the opening day 2020 roster, and he stayed on there ever since, consistent year to year in what he did. Now, here to me is the fascinating question, and I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to this one either. What they got for him from the Tigers, it's all right. It's not great. There were some other closers that fetched big time returns at this trade deadline, and Kyle Finnegan didn't fall into the same category as them. So you understand both in terms of performance and the fact that he's a rental where some of these other guys had more years of control. What was the best offer for him last year? What did Mike Rizzo turn down? It had to be better than what Mike DeBartolo got for him this time around just because of the club control. This time it's a rental. We'll never know, probably, but they got something for him in the end. Certainly he was valuable to the team all these years, but did they miss an opportunity to get even more for him if they had traded him last summer?
I don't know how the answer to that question isn't yes. I mean, he was better last year than he was this year. I mean, just the fact that they non-tendered him in the offseason, that to me highlighted they should have traded him. If they thought that little of him to non-tender him, then they should have dealt him last year. That to me was a mistake by Mike Rizzo to not do that. Who now becomes the Nats closer? Kyle Finnegan gone. Luis Garcia gone. Andrew Chafin gone. Cole Henry not in a good place. Jackson Rutledge not in a good place. I'm serious when I say what I'm about to say. Konnor Pilkington. Is it possible that Konnor Pilkington this weekend against the best team in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers, is out there trying to close out a Nats victory?
I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess that the first man up. Now, this could change over the final 2 months of the season as guys either have success or more likely do not have success. But I would believe that the first man to get the opportunity is going to be Jose A. Ferrer. And the idea there is he is a young, hard thrower, homegrown, who has always been viewed as a potential late inning option for them and who has had some success, but has been very inconsistent. But he's still growing into the position, and he would be a potential long-term answer for you there. It may get ugly at times. There may be some blown saves along the way, but now's the time over the next 2 months to find out, does he have it or not? I would think he gets the first crack at it. Maybe if there's a situation where there's more right-handed hitters coming up, maybe a Cole Henry or even a Zach Brixey who has closed in the minor leagues, maybe they get the shot. Pilkington's been a very nice story here recently. I don't think he is viewed as a long-term answer for them. You need to see a lot more from him to have any idea whether he's cut out for it or not. He's also somebody who has pitched multiple innings in the minor leagues and has started in the past. So he might even be more valuable to you as a middleman, 2-inning kind of reliever than anything else. But it could be really ugly these next 2 months with the bullpen. We know how bad they were at quote unquote full strength to start the season. They did kind of stabilize it here over the course of the summer. They just lost, obviously, their veteran closer and 2 veterans that they picked up in midseason who did a really nice job for them, either one of whom could probably have stepped into a closer's role if needed because they've done it before. And they don't have any of them anymore, and it could get very ugly. I want to make one final point here that Mike DeBartolo went out of his way to mention to us in the Zoom call, and I think it's important because we brought this up too. Technically, he was the GM when they signed Luis Garcia, the pitcher, and that was his first move as interim GM. But he went out of his way to point out that had been in the works for a while, and that Mike Rizzo was really more responsible for the acquisition. It was a nice gesture on his part. He could have taken full credit for doing that, and instead he gave the credit to Rizzo.
I did like that. That was a nice thing that Mike DeBartolo did. Another item I wanted to bring up, and this is something that has driven me nuts in recent years post-trade deadlines, and that is the Nats in the latter months of these lost seasons playing veterans who are roads to nowhere. And we've seen this with, I think, way too many guys, especially over the first few years of the rebuild. So here we are now. Josh Bell did not get traded. Paul DeJong did not get traded. No offense to them. They're veterans who do not fit into the big picture with this team. I want to see as many young players given as much playing time as possible the rest of the way. Now, DeJong wasn't playing every day anyway. Josh Bell, though, for the most part was and has been hitting well. Do you think Josh Bell's playing time is going to be drastically cut over these final 2 months, or do you expect him to continue to be more or less an everyday player for this team?
I'm going to guess, and you're not going to like this, I'm going to guess that Josh Bell is their everyday DH the rest of the season, provided he doesn't go into a big slump. And I know where you're coming from. I get this. But you are still trying to win some games. You do have very few, established hitters in your lineup. He is somebody who has gotten hot and been a productive hitter for the last, 2 months, really, at this point. Now, he could go cold. We know how quickly that can happen. Barring some other really obvious alternative, and really the only other choices at this point would be to, take your young outfielders and try to play 4 of them and have one of them DH. And I would get the logic behind doing something like that. We'll see how it goes, but my guess is that Josh Bell is going to be the DH most nights the rest of the season.
Because what I was thinking was, along what you just said, Robert Hassel III is being called back up. Dylan Cruz is about to be back. Rather than have one of the 4 young outfielders have to sit every game, why not DH one of those guys? Wouldn't that make sense to try to get these guys as many plate appearances as possible? Again, understanding that Josh Bell isn't taking you anywhere. He's going to be a free agent. They're almost certainly not going to re-sign him. There's just no real point to playing him. Man, I hope you're wrong with what you just said. I guess we'll see.
We'll see. And again, maybe that will change, and maybe there's a cold-hearted move coming up that we don't see coming, and they just release him. I don't think they do that to him just because of how well respected he is. And look, let's be clear. I know the numbers for the season are not great. The last 2 months, he's been one of their most productive hitters. And yes, he's not part of the future plan, but we lament all the nights that they get shut out and get worked by these opposing pitchers who are not that good. Maybe Robert Hassel and Dalen Lyle getting more at-bats would help them be a better offensive team. But at this moment, if you're asking me who gives them the best chance to win, Josh Bell's probably part of that equation on a semi-regular basis.
My argument would be I don't care if they win, and I don't think that they should care if they win. You know, this season's a debacle. Like, you have to, they have to understand and own what this season is. It is a disaster. You know, the fact that they are sellers and that it wasn't even debatable whether they should be sellers. I mean, we haven't really even talked about that. One of the things we identified as sort of a telltale sign of whether this season would be a success is, well, are they sellers regarding the deadline? They weren't just sellers. They were slam dunk sellers. This is a 5th consecutive trade deadline for which they're sellers. Half of a decade now, they have been sellers. There has to be real honesty about what they are here. We'll see.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Certainly different when you're the final decision maker, and I feel good about the results and the players we got, and really excited about that. You know, again, the conversations were somewhat different just in terms of some of the things we were looking at and some of the different factors we were weighing. You know, but ultimately kind of being able to guide that in my own style and prioritize the things that I wanted to prioritize. Certainly, I felt good with how things turned out.
I did want to say this about Mike DeBartolo. Did a good job with the draft. Did a good job with the trade deadline. We're talking about process here. We don't know about the returns, but did a good job with the draft. Did a good job with the trade deadline. You know, this next item is a matter of subjective opinion, but I'm a fan of what he has preached, you know, a modern data-driven vision for what Nats baseball operations should be. He seems to understand where the team has gone wrong. He has not been shy about saying real change needs to happen. He's been with the organization since 2012, so you would think that he has an understanding of ownership and how to deal with this ownership group. I think DeBartolo is doing a good job here, and I'm not saying that the Nats shouldn't interview other candidates. Of course they should, but I would say so far so good for Mike DeBartolo. I like what we're seeing, and I'm very open to him getting that interim tag removed. I think he's been impressive in the short time that he's been interim GM.
I think there's been a lot to like. It's been a pretty smooth transition at a time when it could have been disaster in a lot of ways, given the upheaval like that. And I think he's walked a very fine line there between continuing what had been done here before, having some continuity, but also having a different vision and outlining what that is. And the way they've gone about some things kind of does suggest they're doing things a little bit differently. And, you know, I think it's pretty telling that the moves he made are really the moves he didn't make. If you want to interpret, if you want to read more into this than maybe they should, but maybe there is something to it. I kind of read it as him seeing this team being closer to winning than not winning. That the rebuild is salvageable, to use your term for it, as opposed to it's time to start all over again. Now, maybe deep down he does think that it's going to take longer than that, but he feels like to get the job, he can't convey that publicly, and that he needs to try to convince ownership that they are closer to being ready. So maybe there's that. But as we've discussed, like, there is real talent on this team. They just need more of it, and they need more to supplement what they already have in terms of experienced players. So I kind of viewed as what he did here over the last week as a sign that he thinks they're not that far off, that with this core and with some smart decisions, and yes, some more resources presented to him in the offseason, that this can be a team that can finish what they had started a few years ago, maybe sooner rather than later. We'll see in the long run how that all goes, but under the circumstances, thrown into a very difficult situation, I think you have to be impressed with the way he's handled it so far.
Well, I think there is a world in which Dylan Cruz, Brady House play well the rest of this season. James Wood gets back on track. CJ Abrams continues to have a good season. MacKenzie Gore gets back on track. You finish the season with those guys doing well. You have Josiah Gray coming back for next season. You do have other prospects who are on the rise, although whether they'll be major league ready next season is debatable. But you have this foundation, and then you do spend some money this offseason. And I know, cue the laugh track, but just, bear with me here. You do spend some money this offseason to try to supercharge the rebuild. You could argue they need to start the rebuild over. You also could argue they need to do the exact opposite of that, which is double down on what they have, add an infusion of talent this offseason, and maybe go for it next year. I think there is a world in which that happens and that things turn out a lot better than they seem right now. And I wonder if that is in the back of Mike DeBartolo's mind of, I don't know what I would be allowed to spend this offseason, but my presentation to ownership would be, hey, if you're willing to spend X, we could actually supercharge this thing to where next season we're in wild card contention. I don't think that's a ridiculous outlook. I don't know how realistic it is, but I do think you can make the argument that that's the path that should be taken.
Yeah, 100%. And if his goal is to try to get the job long term, that might be an argument that is in his favor, as opposed to him saying, boy, I don't think we have anything here. I think this is going to take a while. You're going to have to bear with me for another 3, 4, 5 years until we win. If you're trying to sell yourself, you should be trying to say, I think we're not that far off. We can do this in the near future. The other thing that'll be interesting, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but if he does get the job when the season is over, or quite frankly, if somebody else who has a similar analytical background as opposed to a traditional scout's background, and I would guess that that's more likely the direction that they're going to go. Do they, even if they don't have as much money to spend as they want, do they spend that money a little differently and on the kind of players that may not stand out the same way in terms of track record or name recognition, but are valuable players in their own right? And you have a more complete 26-man roster that with interchangeable parts and a deeper bullpen. We see quote unquote low budget teams take that approach and have success, even though if you looked at that roster, you wouldn't see a whole lot of names that excite you and they still have success with it. So that could be a path to this as well, and saying we've got our 5 core players. Let's supplement them not with big name free agents, but with just quality, undervalued players who have specific skills, and the analytics say this is somebody that we should get and try to win that way. I think that would be another avenue that he could be looking at this.
One of the undeniable lessons in baseball over the last 30 years is that spending money guarantees nothing, and that you don't have to spend a lot to win a lot. Now, it helps if you can spend a lot because it can cover up for mistakes and you can re-sign guys, etc., but you don't have to spend a lot to win a lot, and there are just countless examples of that. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Luis Garcia also, signed on a free agent deal, and I do have to give credit there to Mike Rizzo. I've seen sometimes online, saying it's my first acquisition. That was in the works, before I took over. So, I deserve no credit there, but I appreciate it.